Well, if you are really interested, I guess, again, I would do my homework before you get to the job fair and explore that. And they are offering contracts on the spot. You know, Alaska has done that for a long time because they can't get people to come that far. But again, you've got to know what you're getting yourself into. And are you going to have a choice of schools? Are you going to be in the absolute worst school in that district? Usually, those districts. Well, there's lots of reasons why they're there, and lots of reasons why they have so many. I spend a lot of time in the Tampa, Florida area, and in Pasco County, which is a county north of Tampa, they hire somewhere in the neighborhood of 10,000 people a year, which is incredible. And I would guess you could turn your application in there and probably sign the contract the next day. So there are situations like that, but you know, and there's some great schools in Pasco County, but there's some schools in Pasco County that, you know, I think you're setting yourself up to lose, you know. So you've got that's what I mean. You've got to interview that school as well as them interview you, and if it's not the right fit, you know, I know you all want jobs and you're tired of working at McDonald's or you're tired of, you know, doing the hourly thing, but at the same time, you know, you want a good opportunity, you want an opportunity to be successful, and that's a two-way process.
I was just wondering, it kind of goes back to like changing communities or like getting away from Champaign or whatever. Like we've seen a lot of like what goes on around here in the schools. But if we are thinking about moving, is it okay before you apply to actually like ask to see the school?
Absolutely.
Or, like,
Absolutely.
I know we can talk to people in the community, but sometimes you get a better feel for it if you've like seen it.
Absolutely. You go in and, you know, go in and see the building, see the schools. You know, one of the things that the first thing that I look at when I walk into a school building is cleanliness and how neat it is and how orderly it is. And if there's stuff all over and there's graffiti on the walls and the mop boards are dirty and the corners are dirty, there's something wrong. Okay, that's not the way it should be. And that's one of my anal things. But if you get into that building, you get a sense for this feels comfortable. This is a place that, you know, that I think I might like to work, or, you know, I don't think this is it, and that gives you an idea as well. So yeah, good question.
If like when you're in the interview process, is it always a good idea to get into salary, or do you ever get into salary whenever you're in?
Well, I think you're going to get into the salary. You probably should know that before you go into the interview. And again, just about every website's going to have a salary schedule posted out there. The question might be, where will I come in? You know, I substitute taught for a semester, and will I get credit on the salary schedule for that semester? You know, a question like that is certainly legitimate. You know, if you don't know the starting salary of the district where you're interviewing, that tells me you haven't done your homework. You know, and I think you need to do your homework for both for my sake and for your sake. You know, a question. Questions of that nature, you know, it just tells me that you know, I just kind of showed up today and I'm kind of winging this and I'm not sure where we're going with it. You know, doing your homework is important, okay? And again, I started with this, but having a little knowledge about the community, about the school district, about the school is so helpful, And you don't have to blow people away with your knowledge, but it's going to show through as you have discussions with the people with whom you're interviewing. Okay?
One more question. At the end of the interview process, there's often time for the candidates to ask questions to the principals.
You bet.
What kind of questions are you looking for?
Excellent question. What I'm looking for are the questions that lead me to believe that you know what's going on in my school. Okay? And a question might be, you know, what kind of behavior management programs are you using here? And you probably know that we have a PBIS program, all right? But you're asking the question like you don't know. And then when you respond back to that, you let them know that, oh, I've had some experience with that. Now, obviously, you don't want to ask a question that you can't have some knowledge about, or if there's anything that comes up in the interview and you're just not sure that you need clarification, you know, I don't think it's a bad thing to take a pad of paper in with you. You shouldn't be sitting there writing constantly, but to write a quick note between questions is perfectly okay. Again, that especially for those of you that have not interviewed a lot, it gives you time, number one, to step back and reflect a little bit on what you just said in response to a question. And maybe you're just writing gibberish, but it gives you time just to think a little bit and to recompose yourself before that next question comes at you. Yeah, kind of a... Okay.
As an older student, somebody who's been out in industry for 15 years and then come back to get my teaching certificate, I had experience out there teaching an apprenticeship, like an apprenticeship program, and dealing with our apprentices on the shop floor. That is not really, in a way, in industry, it's a formalized training, but in the education system as it exists today, it's not considered formal experience and training. Is there any way, as far as talking about salaries and the salary schedule, for me to get some type of life credit or some type of life credit for that experience that I've had training people in that regards to boost myself on the salary schedule?
That's on a district-to-district basis. You know, it depends on what their collective bargaining agreement has in it for the wordage on experience, and some do. You know, I mean, there are some that are looking for people like you and will give you credit for maybe not for the entire amount of time that you were out there, but will give you some credit for it. Number one, it's more difficult for you as an older person to come in at a starting salary where people that are 22 years old, they're pretty excited to make $35,000 a year because they've been, you know, working at McDonald's for $6 an hour for a long time, you know. But for you, that might not, you know, it may be difficult, and you're going to have to make some sacrifices with family and your lifestyle and everything. So, but that would be in each individual school district's collective bargaining agreement, how they handle that. Yeah. Thank you so much. I enjoy it. Thank you. Thank you for having me.